this doesn't feel right. You're still in the safe zone, because a lot of people now are unaware. They're unaware that they're unaware. They don't know that they don't know. So, and that's the danger of continuously, before we're talking about roles. Sometimes we get so obsessed and absorbed with our roles that we can't identify as our authentic self. So that self-image of our role is the one, that persona is the one that we project often to other people.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And, I do think that this happens from a very, very young age, that our self-image either takes a knock, and you can see it in children as young as 5,
Yeah.
You can see it in their confidence or their lack of confidence,
Yeah.
either coming from the home or from the school system or friends, wherever, whatever system that might be putting them down.
Yeah. The tragedy is when you're growing up, from the age of 1 to 7, you depend on your parents for your self-image. So how your parents see themselves, you actually translate it to yourself as well. If your parents have a particular type of image within the community or society, you also as a child adapt that image. And, I was actually looking at my own family. When I was growing up, my mother was sort of the well-off one in her family. So a lot of people used to come for assistance, they needed a particular help or something. And that image of her kind of like also I adapted it when I was younger.
So you felt responsible for others' needs.
Yeah, so I would see myself, at school. I'll be the one, people come to and they want help in a particular area or with this or that. That was the image I had when I was younger. And, a lot of kids do this. We adapt the image of our parents. And also we depend on our parents' esteem also. So if both the image and esteem work and are adopted by our children as well.
It's so true. Now, in your own home, you mentioned last time, if you don't mind me mentioning it again, that you did come from an abusive background.
Yes.
Your father in particular was abusive.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
I learned a lot of things. But as, those lessons now, I discover they change. In different seasons, I'd feel differently about it. But, now, as I'm older, I think it's a part of my story. It shaped who I am as an individual. But I can either look at it adversely, or I can look at it as something that I was actually fortunate enough to go through. So now I can be a source of healing, and I can actually help others who are going through the same process.
Because you understand it.
Because I understand it.
Did you ever allow yourself to cry as a young child for the pain that you felt?
Yeah, but like I said before, it was difficult to be able alone as a child to learn how to manage those difficult emotions like sadness, like grief, they're just difficult to manage, when you're growing up and you're still quite very young. You're in need of someone with enough guidance to be able to teach you how to deal with those negative emotions. Because what we eventually do, when you are younger, is we suppress or repress. And that's not dealing with them. They're still there. They still exist. But now we've just managed to build a dam wall to hold them back for a little longer. What happens now is the water begins to rise behind that dam wall. Eventually it's going to flood. And that's what happens with a lot of people. People commit suicide because of emotions from their past that they haven't been able to deal with, or even don't know exist. They exist in the subconscious, and that's something that happens every day.
And what you say, there's such truth to it. And thank you so much for your truth in this. I think that's why we are dealing so much in this country also with unbelievable violence and aggression.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it stems from feelings that have never been expressed, from abuse that has gone through, and eventually the dam has burst.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it more and more, especially among our youth, aren't we?
Yeah. And emotions like anger, are very difficult to deal with, and what we eventually end up doing is we project them. And we can't take ownership of that anger we're feeling and say, I'm upset. You upset me. That's what we say, most of the time. But we don't just acknowledge that, I am upset. It's my upset. It's my anger.
And I'm
the
hurting.
one and I'm hurting. I'm the one who's feeling this. And to sit with those emotions becomes very difficult. So we try and release by doing a lot of different things, and I think pain has a lot to do with addiction. A lot of people in this country in particular are trying to deal with pain, and they get absorbed with different addictions, like alcoholism, drug abuse. All those things are things people do because they're trying to deal with pain.
To try and escape the pain.
Yeah.
And you almost have to be given permission to feel that pain, don't you?
True.
And that hurt.
Yeah.
And I think it makes you feel very vulnerable when you have admitted it and that you are in a place of pain and you're holding this deep well of pain inside you.
Yeah.
It does leave you very vulnerable unless someone can help you to deal with it.
It does. That's why you need, someone who actually has some knowledge as to how you can go through the process, or someone who's been through the process, who's also on their own personal journey of healing.
And when you go into the schools, because I think a lot of our youth are resistant or perhaps don't even know about therapy.
Yeah.
Or are resistant to it because they have been taught to suppress emotions and get on with life. Life is hard. That's it. It's your deal. Just get on with it.
Yeah, where I come from, therapy is considered one of those luxuries. It's something you do with extra money that you don't know what to deal with, because people are stuck with everyday bills and they're stuck going from one day to the next, one paycheck to the next. You can't spare enough and say, oh, this is for therapy. It's something that you do after you've done everything else where I come from. So it's considered very much a luxury. So people are just go to the bar and drink themselves to near death, or maybe just take it out on drugs or things like that. But at the essence of everything, they're just trying to deal with those difficult emotions that they haven't been able to express.
It's true, and unfortunately, also you have the opposite, where people perhaps with too much rush to the psychiatrist, psychologist at the slightest thing.
Yeah.
Stay relevant and up to date. Keep you informed. This is 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on Finding Human, and my guest today is Michael-Mujera, and the time is going very quickly, Michael. You can SMS us on 34519 or WhatsApp us on 062 148 2374. A bit later, you're going to be hearing a very beautiful YouTube by Maya Angelou. Now, Maya Angelou and Viktor Frankl were both people who came through abuse and found meaning and purpose in their lives. We were just talking now, Michael, about how people also rush off to go and sort out their problems very quickly when they hand it over almost.
True. That's another type of addiction. When you're just trying to look for a savior outside of yourself, someone who can help you go through it, and you're not taking enough responsibility yourself to work through the things that you need to work through to actually get past it. And I think some therapists actually allow it, because as long as I'm getting paid by the hour, I don't really care, as long as I can, I actually read some research that says, some of the therapists, by the way, it's not everyone, actually do this thing where they just make their patients, they're like enablers. and they continually make their patients feel like they're unable to cope with things without them, and they're like drug dealers in a way.
It's so true, unfortunately.
To keep you coming back for more. And as long as you don't take responsibility for yourself, and as long as you don't assert yourself and say, you know what, I am seeking intentional growth in this particular area that I'm struggling with, you will never move forward.
It's so true. And, I think also as therapists, we also have to be very aware of actually not being enablers.
Yeah.
And showing our clients that we do believe in them.
True.
And that they're not going to need us for forever. We're there to help them work through something and then they move on. Absolutely. Now, my son-in-law actually sent me a YouTube today on the family chat, which was very good, and he said I better mention him. So thank you, Paul Koffler. And it was by John Wickland. He's a business professor at Syracuse, and he talks about his diagnosis of ADHD. And how, he was really a dropout at school, and yet he went on to become an unbelievably successful man.
Yeah.
And because it was not suppressed, the creativity that was part of him was not suppressed.
Yeah.
And, it's thinking out of the box.
True.
Now, funny enough, I've just returned from Israel, and someone was telling me that the reason why there are so many startups new startup companies in Israel is because of the training that the youngsters have in Israel Defense Force, where they are taught to take responsibility for others, to work as a team, to think out of the box.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we can all learn, that we're not just in this world as individuals. We are actually here to share a better world. As well.
We are. I always say to myself, it's difficult to find meaning outside of service. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to serve someone, some way, somehow. And essentially, service is why we're here, to help each other, go through the motions, live in a better world, all those things. That's what we're here to do.
That's beautiful, and it's what Viktor Frankl calls self-transcendence, moving out of our own sphere, seeing beyond ourselves, and seeing how we can heal the world, and by so doing, heal ourselves too. He also spoke a lot about anxiety of this era. He calls it the disease of our times, a collective neurosis. And it sort of shows itself as a planless day-to-day. There was, of living. There's just no plan of your day, or of being a fatalist, of saying the world's coming to an end anyway. It's useless, and why should we bother? So we won't take responsibility for that. And also the collective thinking that we're prepared to take on other people's thoughts, whether it's fanaticism or whatever it is. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, not wanting to take responsibility. That's why you start to just indulge in different, in different, what can I say, different persuasions, different, like you called it fanaticism. Yeah, a lot of people are fanatics and they're fans of different things. And I wouldn't want to mention, but the only example I'm thinking of, is off the top of my head is, now we have a lot of different motivational speakers that are out there. A lot of people just enjoy the pumped up feeling they have, after just going for a motivational talk or what. But at the end of the day, it comes back to you taking responsibility for your life. You need to do the things that you need to do and go through the process. There's no way around that. There's no way. You can listen to podcasts all day from motivational speakers, but they will not be able to do the work for you. Never. It's never going to happen. You need to get up, do whatever you need to do, and for me personally, I think my struggle has always been, I want to show up as my best every single day. But, I'm not at the epitome of my potential each and every day. Sometimes the best I can do is simply getting out of bed. And that's the best
Absolutely.
I've done, and that's the best for that day. It doesn't mean it's the best for the rest of my life.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And Viktor Frankl says that freedom is not freedom from responsibility.
Yeah.
It's actually freedom to make a choice each day and
Yeah.
every day
True.
of how we're going to live our lives,
lives, yeah.
responsibly.
Yeah.